Mere Conservatism.
Hi, this is Cleve Walker inviting you to join us, David Perry and myself, for another edition of Mere Conservatism. So now we got progressive liberalism in control of the powerful points of our government and even in other parts of our society as far as like social media and that is concerned and the regular media. They are large and in charge. And yet, this is a great opportunity for us to juxtapose their vision for this nation and our vision for the nation, okay? We've got a vision for the nation inspired by the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, inspired by our faith in the Creator from whom we derive our rights. And they have a philosophy that says everything is accomplished solely through the machinations and understanding and imaginations of humans. I still am one of the people, and I may be one of the few who feel this way. I don't feel that the majority of this people in this nation are progressive in their outlook and thinking and values. I believe that it appears that way, not only because of the way the presidential elections turned out, which for me is not a good way to measure it because I believe that was a fraudulent election. But I think the majority of people in this nation are still people of goodwill who may not be as conservative as we are, as I am, but who nonetheless are not on the loony side of the left. The takeover, the usurping of the power in Washington came about as a result, and this is going to sound like one of those things that they say you should never talk about. It's going to sound like a conspiracy. Okay. And, sometimes we have to understand just because something is a conspiracy doesn't mean it's wrong. As a matter of fact, most conspiracies are done undercover and in a subtle way to try to get away with it and are based upon, being able to pull the wool over people's eyes. So there was a conspiracy, I believe, to win this election through using mail ballots in a way that they were not intended to be used under the pretext of the pandemic. And so that's what people will say is an unproven allegation. And therefore, you can't even talk about it anymore. You can't even say it in polite company. And certainly, if you aspire to a public life, you can't say it. And I say baloney with that. That's the problem we've had. We've allowed ourselves to be cowed into silence. Those of us who have a constitutional view of law or are people of faith, we're being cowed into silence. And too many have done that. Too many have said, okay, I guess I shouldn't speak up when I say things that seem to question the established norms. But I'm trying to tell you, right now, America, the majority of us are not in that corner. But the media, particularly the social media, through their ability to cancel and to eclipse any other expression other than the expression that has been cleared by the cultural elites, make it seem like we're in the minority. But we're not yet anyway. I truly believe we're not there yet. We can get there if we're not careful. But right now, we are seeing the image that has been created and put into play by those who have just done some dastardly things to gain power, dishonest things. And there's hope yet, simply because, number one, if you're like I am and like David are, we're believers in God. He is the X factor, and he always determines the ultimate outcome by trusting him. Now, David is still doing the family thing at home. He's got a brand new addition to the family. And there's been, of course, some pandemic protocols we've had to observe here at the studio. So I'm going to bring David on by phone right now. And David, I want to start off by saying congratulations on your newborn son.
He's awesome too, Cleve. He's awesome.
You can tell that already.
Yeah, he's totally cool. I'm pretty sure that he's left-handed.
Oh, okay.
Which means we're putting a baseball in his hand right away. And actually, to be honest with you, Cleve, he broke his collarbone on the way out.
Really?
So he broke his right collarbone, and so of course he's going to be left-handed because now he's got to favor that right hand. That right hand's got to use his left hand to do everything.
But he's doing okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's doing great.
Okay.
You know how newborn babies are. They use their hands a lot. You know, they wave them around, they slap them, they kind of chew on them, stuff like that. So hopefully he'll, be left-handed like his big sister.
Well, I had a reason for bringing him up, your son. By the way, what's your son's name again, Elliot?
He's Elliot. Yeah.
Okay. I have a reason for bringing him up because the pictures that you guys posted, I looked at that, and I've been looking at the pictures of my own kids when they were small, and David, it's a reminder of why we never, ever should think of giving up the culture fight in our nation, because we look at their faces. That's what it's all about. It is our family. It is their well-being and in the future that they're going to deal with that should make us never want to give up. And that's what I saw when I saw your brand new son there. I know you feel the same way.
I do. I feel that way, and it's kind of daunting, as a new parent to think about those things and the challenges that will be faced. But, as we've discussed before, God knows. He knows the world that Elliot is entering. He knew the world that I was entering in 1984. He knew the world that you were entering in 1650, whenever that was. The Pilgrims or something.
Yeah.
But my point being, God knows, and we follow Him, and He leads us, He guides us, He protects us, and that's not going to change, no matter what world we enter.
You make a great point. It's just that I've actually heard many people on our side say, okay, that's the ball game. The Democrats are in control. The inmates are in control of the asylum. The best thing we can do is just hunker down and just hopefully make it through this. And some Christians are saying, well, just wait for Jesus to come back. We're not going to do it. And that attitude, oh my goodness, it so bothers me. Because like I said, we have a reason to go on and a reason to have hope. And yet so many are pretty much giving it up, David.
Well, it's a little frustrating to have a Democrat elected before people get excited about Jesus coming back. Come on, guys.
It does make me wonder about your motives, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. Let's go ahead and get into it. You talked about having the Democrats control, and they're in in the temporal sense. We know, of course, God is in control, but in a temporal sense,
somebody should write a song about that, Cleve.
About what?
That God is in control. I mean, maybe that could even be the lyrics.
It's a brand new idea, a brand new concept.
God is in control. I mean, I might write a song.
Well, the House, the Democrats in the House voted to remove freshman Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments in the House. And that happened. It's that's brand new. That never happened before. Greene made comments on Friday, actually apologizing for previous controversial comments that she had expressed. She supports some of the conspiracy theories that have been long since, proven to be just conspiracy theories. And, she even believed, for example, the 9/11 attacks were staged. So but she's apologizing for that. She said, I don't believe it anymore. But my point, David, here the Democrats and a few Republicans joined on board, as a matter of fact, quick to bump her off these committees and do all that. And you got these outrageous statements, anti-Semitic statements that have been made by several people on their side. Nothing happens. And I think that's what gets people, David, more than anything else, this huge double standard that there are two tiers of justice. And, what do you think about that?
Well, I think a couple things. One thing is that part of me feels like it's a subverting the will of the people when they elect a congressperson.
Uh-huh.
And then the congressperson is made impotent by the body that they've been elected to.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is that her name? Marjorie.
I said Marjorie.
Marjorie.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marjorie. She made a lot of these comments and then got elected. So it's not like she got elected and then became crazy.
True.
And no, I mean the people elected her, presumably knowing what she was like. And so she should be able to represent her district.
Uh-huh.
That's one feeling about it. And actually, I feel the same way about Ilhan Omar and some other people that probably should be censured by their party. Of course, Ilhan Omar has said a lot of things since she was elected that should get her.
And that's my point. She said stop doing her office holding days. And this is before she got in office. So I don't know. I guess, again, one of the things that wears people out on our side is that we see this two-tier system where the Democrats literally can get away with doing and saying anything, and Republicans or conservatives are not afforded the same understanding, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that I don't think that we should stop holding our own side accountable, but I definitely understand the frustration. And again, this is somebody who was elected after they prescribed to 9/11 truthism and weird things like that. So I kind of feel like they should be allowed to do the job that they were elected to do. But what can I say? I think that there is no even-handed treatment of these people. That's the point that you're making, and that's absolutely true. At least Marjorie has apologized for some of the weird things that she believed.
Right.
I'm assuming that she still doesn't believe that 9/11 was an inside job, which is nuts. But Ilhan Omar is still anti-Semitic.
Exactly. And still saying outrageous things. Yeah. So that's my point. I guess what I'm trying to say is that's one of the things that we need to steel ourselves to understand. You're right. They're not going to, the media, especially in the social media, now we know, are not going to give any breaks to anybody on our side, no matter how many times you apologize, no matter what you say you believe now. The Democrats, however, will get I'll give you a perfect example. Your friend and mine, Swalwell, who ought to be hiding his head in shame and embarrassment and be censored.
The guy the spy who shagged him, is that should I say that? I shouldn't say that.
No, you didn't say that.
The guy who had an affair, bleep that out. The guy who had an affair with a Chinese spy,
Yeah, my point is, he can do that, and now he is, I think, the one who's managing the impeachment deal for the Democrats against Trump. I mean, in the Democrat Party, if you do something or get caught red-handed doing something that's disgraceful, you're promoted.
It's funny. I mean, you would think that they would say, "Hey, look, Eric, let's have you lay low for a little while."
Yeah.
I mean, this news. I mean, at the very least, you would think that they would say, "This news just came out about you. Why don't we have you lay low a little bit and not head up very important political committees and things like that, given your big mess up here." But no, they don't do that. You're right. They do not typically hold their own accountable. And the way I feel about this, and maybe this is unfair, I'm biased, but it feels like the Democrats do their best to pound, just maul Republicans and conservatives with their own values. So, we may have standards and we may have values as conservatives and as Republicans, and it feels like sometimes that they only hurt us. They only matter to us because Democrats will hold us to our own standard, so to speak, as if they agree with the standard, but they don't hold themselves to that standard.
That's a good point.
And so it's almost like, it makes you wonder, obviously we shouldn't do this, but it makes you wonder, why have the standard if we are the only people who care about it, and it's used as a bludgeon against us? And honestly, I think that is part of the reason that Donald Trump became the nominee and became president, is because there were a lot of folks who were tired of holding to the standard of the wholesome individual as our party's nominee, and just having that used as a weapon against us by people who are not wholesome and have no standards, and so it was kind of a middle finger, it was kind of a slap in the face back at people.
Well, I want to.
That's one read on it, but yeah, you're right.
I want to say this because I know you're not saying this. You and I would never say we should lower our standards because the Democrats have no standards. But you are saying that it is interesting and ironic that the Democrats, because of the media and other things, are able to use our standards against us. And sometimes I think we fall for that, in that if anybody on our side, whether it's Marjorie or anybody else, does or say anything that in any way is not good, we also jump on them and try to devour them.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I'm saying?
We opened up today talking about the culture, Cleve, and not giving up the culture war. And what happens is that Democrats, they control the culture. They control the levers of power in government and media and in the culture. And so they get to almost dictate what cultural faux pas are.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I go back to what you said earlier. This is why Donald Trump, I think, was elected. And what Donald Trump showed was this also: you're not going to be liked by the media. You're not going to be their girl or their guy. So stop trying to do that. Don't try to appease them. Don't try to get along with them, because it ain't going to happen unless you cross the aisle and become one of them. So
this is one of the biggest problems with somebody like John McCain.
Oh, my goodness.
John McCain so wanted to be liked by the media. And he was liked by the media until he was running against the Democrat.
And then they destroyed him.
Yeah. He was liked by the media because he criticized Republicans and all that stuff, but when he ran against the Democrat, he was a racist now.
Yeah,
and the problem with him is that he accepted that and let that happen, and acted like he thought it was a good thing to be liked by the media. It's really not a good thing. It's not a good sign, and I do think that in the post-Trump era, we have a lot more Republicans that realize that the media hammering you and not liking you is actually a really good sign.
It is.
You get a lot of flack when you're over the target, they say. So,
well, we're finding out though, if the media dislikes you and if you stand up to it, if you're on our side will actually rally around you. Okay, that's what Trump also showed. In other words, far from that making you a problem if you stand up to the media, you give us a rallying point. Now, case in point, Ron DeSantis recently went on record saying in Florida, the government of Florida, the state of Florida, the state government, they were going to hold the media accountable for their undue influence and biases, and we're going to take some official action to do that. Now, that's pretty that's a pretty tough stance to take, because you're talking about the most powerful entities on the planet, bar none. And DeSantis says, no, we've got to call them out. We've got to formally call them out on that, and we cannot just take it sitting down. And more people are rallying around Ron DeSantis as one of the bastions of liberty in this nation, and what he's doing in Florida. So that's a case in point. He doesn't want the media to like him. He doesn't care.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis is great. I mean, he's a great governor, and he's also he's been pretty good at handling the media and the way that they will behave to him. So I think that he's a front runner for the next round of elections, and I'm really glad that he's the governor of Florida, because he's great.
Well, we both know, though, that means for the next 4 years until another presidential election, the media will have him in their crosshairs. And so we need to understand that's a given. Okay, yeah, definitely.
He is definitely a major target for them. And I think that he's got what it takes. He's one of those Republicans that isn't going to fold, and that's what we need. We need somebody who's good at what they do. I mean, he's a good politician. He's a little bit different than Donald Trump in that he's actually a talented politician.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was a talented reality TV star
and businessman.
Didn't care what people thought. And Ron DeSantis is actually a talented politician. He doesn't care what people think, and I think we definitely need that.
Well, let's get back to the occupant of the Oval Office and some of the stuff he's doing now. Now, during the campaign, Biden had promised to forgive up to $10,000 in federal student debt, but some Democrats are now calling on him to cancel up to $50,000 in federal student debt through executive action. So, wow, David, what's that all about?
Why just 50?
Well, good
Why
point.
stop it there?
I think, yeah.
All these things are just numbers they pull out of thin air, and there's no rhyme or reason for any of it. They just kind of pick a number. So if it's 50, why not do more than that? If you're just going to, it's government debt. You can do whatever you want to with it, supposedly, apparently.
Well, since there's no rhyme or reason, so what's their reason for doing it?
They're just trying to buy votes. That's all it is. They're using the purse strings, trying to buy people off. That's their goal. And if they can get people with student loan debt and make them loyal to liberals, loyal to Democrats, they think that they're going to, be reelected. But of course, they're doing it on the backs of people who paid their way through college,
right?
Worked their way through college, and they're doing it on the backs of people who decided to pay their debts. So, of course, it's not fair. A lot of people like to talk about what's fair, and when the government does things that are fair, but you can't convince me that forgiving student loan debt is fair.
Yeah, it's the thing that surprises me. Well, it shouldn't surprise me, but the thing that I point out is, okay, so if you forgive their debt, all you're going to do is just not deal with the main problem, which is the price of going to college is way inflated, especially some of the bigger schools. Why don't you work on bringing the cost down at the schools? And I don't mean offering free college. I'm not going that route. That's the other part of the incentive.
Yeah, that bring the cost way down, Cleve. That's a pretty good idea. Good job.
But for example, there are things that the colleges are doing that are artificially raising tuition rates. And, deal with it on that end. My goodness gracious, this idea, like you said, of buying votes by canceling student debts. And then, of course, you got another big stimulus package. David, they're breaking the bank.
Yeah, well, government-backed student loans are a big reason why college is so expensive to begin with, obviously. And when you start forgiving that, you're just gonna even more inflate the price of college.
Yeah, you're right.
They're causing a problem in the market when it comes to college tuition.
And the sad thing about it, to me, the product being delivered by the colleges has shrunk in quality because they basically
it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
The product is irrelevant. It's a piece of paper that is unfortunately for a lot of people useless. They take out debt to do things that do not make sense to take out debt to do. In some cases. It really is an issue.
Well, especially the colleges, the famous ones like Harvard and Yale, which have the highest, of course, tuition and rates and whatnot, but are nothing more than indoctrination machines for the liberals. And this is why the liberals, I think, are trying to help them out, cut them a break, because this is how they manufacture more liberals.
Yeah, and it seems to be working.
Well, I think we've gotten to the point, and you and I talked about this before, again, we're going to need alternatives to whatever the mainstream offers, whether it's college education or something else. And there are some good schools out there. There's some conservative schools out there. They're small and whatnot in comparison. But there are good schools out there that believe in the Constitution, believe in a solid education of real science and real training for life. And we're going to have to start getting behind those schools and colleges and backing them up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We need a rethinking of higher education in the country. And some of these schools that you're mentioning are good places. We also need people to not go to college so much. That's kind of weird to say, but there are a lot of people, Cleve, that really don't need to do that.
No, I agree. I agree.
I think that way too many people go to college, and they're like me, and they go to college and they spend 4 years and get a communication degree. Like, I didn't have any student loan debt, thankfully, but had I taken out student loans to get a degree in communication, that would have been a really bad decision. These are some of these things that are taught are just not necessarily skills that are marketable enough to be taking out $80,000 of student loan debt.
That's for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
the college I went to was relatively expensive, and had I had to take loans for all that, it would have taken me way too long to pay those back, given what how marketable my degree made me. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, that makes plenty of sense.
Student loans were done privately, student loans would be given to people who were going to be lawyers and doctors and probably teachers. They wouldn't be given to people who were going to graduate and have to take entry-level jobs at, I don't know, like a food service or something like that. Because there are a lot of people that end up doing that. They graduate. They don't necessarily have a marketable skill. They got a good education. They're smarter. They did a good job. That's fine. But they don't necessarily have a marketable skill. And now they have to pay back a huge student loan making $15 an hour.
No, I think we're in 100% agreement. And so the difference in an education that you're talking about from an Ivy League school, which basically that's for the name of the school only. That gives you a certain amount of academic pedigree, but it doesn't do anything for the average American in preparing them for job and vocation and life in general, unless you want to be transformed to a liberal idiot. But that's another story.
Trade schools, Cleve. I really hope that all my kids go to trade schools. I'd love my daughter to be a welder.
Well, no, trade schools, technical colleges, and so many other places. No, they're excellent. And this is what I mean. We need to, like you said, we need to rethink, especially in light of the current climate, where more and more young people are graduating with worthless degrees and end up dependent upon government assistance even more, which of course still favors the Democrats as far as they're concerned. The more you need government, the better off they feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they want to make sure that you need them real bad.
Now,
everything that they do increases your dependence on them,
and therefore they love it. They love it. They want more immigrants who are here who need the government to help them and provide, because the more you need them, the stronger they are. Simple as that. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Mere Conservatism. Thank you so much for joining David and I. We really appreciate the opportunity to kind of keep you reminded that mere conservatism is alive and well. Conservative principles and thoughts and laws and understanding of the Constitution and worldview will be the things that will save this nation, if anything will. And we invite you to keep on keeping the faith.